North Idaho College proudly presents NIC Today, an informational news magazine that highlights the people, programs, and campus life at North Idaho College and the surrounding community. And now, your host and moderator, President of North Idaho College, Dr. Joe Dunlap.
Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to NIC Today, the program that brings you the people and the programs at North Idaho College and what's happening currently today. And so we have some very special guests. First of all, we have our Board of Trustee Chair, Mr. Ken Howard. Ken, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
We also have our Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Lita Burns. Lita, glad you could make it. And we have Graydon Stanley, our Vice President of Student Services. So Graydon, thank you for being here.
Thank you,
and
Joe.
as usual, we have our Vice President of Communications and Government Relations, Mark Browning. So I'm glad you're all here. This time of year, we typically go through a budget process. And over the past 8 years, NIC has enjoyed unprecedented growth. However, our enrollment is inversely proportional to what's happening in the economy. And so as the economy begins to pick up, our enrollment has begun to decline, which has an impact on our budget. And so I'd like to first ask Ken a little bit about his perspective on where we are, the sources of revenue, and the task we had at hand this year.
Well, as everyone knows, I suspect the budget process is pretty interesting because it's an opportunity in advance to try and balance an awful lot of interests. Here at North Idaho College, as with the community colleges in the state of Idaho, we have a kind of a three-legged stool of our revenue source, and it's property taxes and tuition, and then we have some state contributions. And over the years, the state's contribution has been shrinking. And so it's put more and more stress on the students and on the property tax owners. As we look at this upcoming budget, as you've already indicated, we're looking for a reduction in enrollments this year. After several years of almost record increases in enrollment, we're now seeing this decrease, which is happening across the country. It's not just here, as the economy improves. So our challenge in the budget is going to be to try and meet the needs of growth here at NIC and meet the needs of the students and the faculty and the staff, and the interests of the property owners here in Kootenai County who pay taxes to support this institution. The process itself is interesting because the college comes to the trustees with proposals, and then we've already had an initial look at the proposed budget, and then we have what we call a first reading at our last meeting. We will have a second reading at the next regularly scheduled meeting, and in between now and then, we're going to have a workshop. Gives the trustees a number of opportunities to take a look at the budget, to analyze the interests that need to be satisfied, and to suggest changes as we see that they may need to occur. So it's still in flux right now. The administration's made its proposals, and now the trustees are going to have to take a look at it and see if they're going to need to make any suggested changes.
Well, thank you, Ken. And as part of the drivers for that, this past year we experienced a 10% decline in enrollment, and we are predicting up to another 10% decline next year. And as Ken mentioned, that's consistent with national trends. And so because of that, we've had to reduce our budget by $2.3 million, which is very significant. And two of the large areas on campus are the instruction side and the student services side. And so I'd like to start with Dr. Lita Burns and then go to Graydon and have you discuss what you've had to reduce in your budget and what the impact of that is.
Probably not surprising. The majority of the budget and instruction is in personnel, so focusing on the faculty, both full-time and part-time faculty. As over the past few years, when we did have an increase in enrollment, the way we managed that increased enrollment was to hire more adjunct faculty. Our full-time faculty remained relatively flat or stable, and we hired a lot of part-time faculty to be able to address the increased enrollment and provide more sections of courses and more courses themselves. So now as we are backing down, it is a matter of really looking at how do we provide the classes that are most needed, and we look first of all at our general education core as making sure that we have enough of those classes, and then the other classes that help students achieve both their program goals here at North Idaho College and their goals to transfer on to other institutions. And the other key to that is just really making sure that all of our classes that we are offering, the sections that we are offering, are full of students. So maximizing the utilization of our faculty, whether they're full-time or part-time, the best that we can.
Thank you, Lita. Graydon, how about in student services?
Much like Lita said, a lot of our budget is tied into personnel, and we've had an opportunity to be preparing for this a bit as we looked at what we were predicting on enrollment and funding through state support and local taxes. We've had a chance to work with our directors and our managers in all these departments to prepare, and so I'm really proud of the work that they've done with that information, as they had openings in each one of those departments where we could do that and not hurt the services that we provide to students. We've eliminated or delayed the hiring of those positions, and so in the student services division, where we have a little over 100 employees, there were about 6.5 positions that we completely eliminated the cost of wages, salary, benefits, all of that for those positions. So that accumulated a sizable savings for us. We did some reorganization in a number of our units where we got people probably in more logical places to begin with. So the great news is we were able to come up with the savings we needed. The better news yet is that we didn't affect programs in a way that students are going to be served any less than they've ever been served. We'll still provide that quality education in the classroom, quality services in student services, and do all of that in a financially responsible manner.
You know, there were some assumptions that we agreed upon, that these were really the areas that we needed to protect. And Andy, I think if you've got slide 2, we'll pull that up now. We'll let the folks at home see just exactly what we worked off of as we went to go through all the different budgets. But one of which is what Ken mentioned, is that we looked at it and said, okay, we had a slight decrease in the fall of 12 and in the spring of 13, and then the significant drop that we had in the fall of 13, we anticipate that to continue, so that 10% enrollment. But those 5 areas that we really concentrate on, that's, you know, tying back everything we do. Some of the things that, you know, we have done just out of practice. This was a very good exercise, I think, for us in our department to go through to say, okay, what are we doing, and how does that relate directly to our charge of community engagement and student service and providing all those things? So you really strip it away and then build it back up. And making that number, as the president will tell you, is pretty tough, but it's something that we really didn't have any choice. You've got to get there. You have to have a balanced budget.
Well, and one of the ways we were able to do that was, as Lita mentioned, by shrinking our adjunct instructional force. And I am very proud of the fact that we were able to reduce our budget by $2.3 million, and we did not lay off a single full-time employee. And that was one of our objectives. And so we were able to expand and contract with the adjunct. We had huge savings on the facilities side of the house, and each area of the campus contributed in a different way. And so, Ken, as you look at the budget and you look at the fiscal responsibilities to our stakeholders and our taxpayers, and you look into the future, could you give us a perspective on how you see the response in the community and the desire for us to be more fiscally responsible and accountable and good stewards of the budget?
Yeah, you know, when you're setting the budget from the trustee level, which is sort of a macroscopic view, it's not a microscopic view the way the administration does it. You look at a lot of factors, and quite frankly, we are now seriously involved in trying to develop a program to get new professional technical, we now call them career technical facilities. we probably will have to go to the voters at some point in time and ask for some kind of a bond. And I think it's critical that we maintain the trust of the voters. And so this whole process that we're going through now of being good stewards with our responsibilities, making the serious cuts where they need to be made, trying to hold down any increase in taxes, and to the extent that we can in tuition. Those are things I think that will ultimately help us in our mission of going out and asking the voters to support us when we go after the bond issue that we're looking at that wouldn't really increase taxes, but it's going to need their support. It's going to need their support to make sure that we're able to get the money to go ahead and build those. So I see this whole budgetary process as having long-term political effects as well as the short-term effects of making sure that we do our job.
Thank you, Ken. Andy, could you pull up slide number 11? And I think this slide really speaks to the issue of being fiscally responsible to our stakeholders. And the vast majority of costs at any educational institution is on the personnel side of the house. And you can see from this side that the total revenues, which is the top line, parallels the total salary costs. And so as the revenues go down, our salary costs, by shrinking the adjunct population, goes down as well. And I think that's a testament to being good stewards and trying to meet the needs of students as well. Now, Lita, could you talk a little bit about whether the impact of budget reductions has impacted student success or the excellence in education?
Be happy to. From my perspective, the budget impact has not impacted student success. In fact, I think that that's the goal of all of ours, is to make sure that we hold harmless the students in this process. We want all students to be able to achieve the goals that they've established and why they came to North Idaho College. And so working with student services to make sure that we provide that support for them to be successful in the classroom, and then certainly to make sure that we maintain the high level quality of instruction. And earlier I spoke to the need to maintain full-time faculty levels at somewhat an even level. We believe that that is one of the ways that we make sure that we can maintain that high level of education that we provide here at North Idaho College. So we try to maintain a full-time to part-time faculty ratio to be very steady so that students don't lose out, because we have many instructors who are not full-time and maybe don't appreciate the full role of a faculty member at the college in terms of helping students to meet their educational goals.
Thank you, Lita.
Lita, I've heard it said from a couple of students that I've talked to who have transferred on, they've said academically it was more rigorous here at NIC than some of the places that they've gone on. Is that a result of having more full-time faculty versus part-time, or is there any correlation there?
You know, I would like to be able to tell you that we've done studies and research to actually be able to prove that. We have not. But we do believe that that impacts the student success a lot, and the rigor. The students get one-on-one attention here at North Idaho College, more so than they do many other places. And so when they are engaging with the faculty one-on-one, it does increase the rigor is part of it, but also the expectations of the students, because they have that relation, they establish that relationship. And so I think that's what produces our great outcomes.
You know, one really good example of that is that we just received the results of the national nursing exam that our nurses take. And North Idaho College had a 100% pass rate, which is significant compared with the norm, which across the nation is about an 82% pass rate. So that bespeaks of the rigor, the quality of faculty, and the attention to detail.
Graydon, I was going to ask you from the student perspective, what you hear from students in terms of the relationship with faculty and then that one-on-one attention. And then after that, I want to get to an example that we have from some of our graphic design students. But from the student's perspective, what do you hear in that regard?
I think the best thing about North Idaho College, and I suspect it'd be echoed by the students, is the collaboration that exists. So as we were going through this budget setting process, it was instruction talking about what are we going to do. It was student services talking about what we're going to do. Facilities doing the same. Students were doing the same thing, and they were a part of that process. So as students in ASNIC, student government clubs, organizations, they receive some of their monies through fees here that are impacted by enrollment. So they were going through a similar process. So I think students feel like they're part of this enterprise. So when you say we've got to cut, we've got to move, we've got to work together to do this, they're part of that same team. And so I think they feel like they were invested in it the same way, that they were partners at the table, and they feel good about the direction of the college.
As you get down towards May, it's not only budget time, but it is the end of the semester time, so those students are working on their final projects. We've got a smattering now of some of the animation projects that the students in Philippe Val's graphic design class have been working on. Here's a sample of their work. Students who, part of their final exam offerings with Philippe Val's graphic design students that are housed in the Workforce Training Center in Post Falls. So pretty good offering there, President, on some of the things that we've seen them do throughout the year, and some pretty innovative designs. I like it.
Yeah, great job. Well, in this second half, we have with us Al Williams, our athletic director, and John Parsons, who is our chair of the Booster Club. So welcome, gentlemen. We're glad to have you here today. Today we've been talking about the budget, and so the first thing I want to mention is the decision that was made based on a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to switch conferences from the Scenic West Athletic Conference to the NWAC. And that was a little controversial. However, it was in part due to the response to our budget reductions. And so, Al, maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about that, the decision, and what that means for the college and our athletes moving into the future.
Well, the decision to go to the Northwest Athletic Association of Community Colleges, which is what the NWAC stands for, it was influenced by the budget, but also was influenced by many reasons. But it is going to have a positive impact, because the main reason that we made that decision was to retain sports, all of our sports, retain jobs, and provide opportunities for student athletes in multiple programs. And that's the whole purpose of having an athletic program. And so with that decision, we were able to retain all 9 of our sports, whereas if we would have remained in the NJCAA, we would have probably only been able to retain 4 or 5 of the sports. So it's pretty significant as far as not being able to go around the campus and say we're going to be cutting programs, which is never a fun thing to do, and it would have adversely affected many student athletes on our campus.
Thank you, Al. John, you've been affiliated with the college for quite a while. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of how you got started with NIC and what you do with the Booster Club now?
Let's see. Wrestling has brought me to North Idaho College. Was recruited here after competing in the Tri-State tournament we have here in December. It's the largest high school tournament in the Northwest. Kind of winning that tournament, you get a free ride to NIC, kind of, if you want to look at it that way. So wrestling here for three years. Went on to the University of Wyoming following that. My wife was here. Ironically, we were talking about the nursing program and their success. She was going through the nursing program at the time. And she stayed here to continue and finish her last year while I was at the University of Wyoming. Came back probably 3 or 4 years back to Coeur d'Alene and joined the board of the Booster Club with Ron Orn was running the show at the time, and we went through a few leaders, and now I'm the last step on the rung, if you would. Okay.
So, gentlemen, the decision to make the move, it doesn't happen instantly. There's some transition that needs to take place. And some of the sports, as I understand, will move at a different time than others. Explain why that is, Al, and some of the logistics that go with that, if you would.
Right. Well, the way it'll work is the outdoor sports will start in the NWAC in fall of 2014. And we picked the outdoor sports first for independent reasons that soccer was in a different conference. We wanted to make sure they were able to play a better competitive schedule, and to align them with the NWAC allows them to have a 10-team league that they automatically go to in the eastern region of the NWAC. And then golf, men and women's golf will go in immediately, and then softball starts as well in the fall. So actually, they will be in the NWAC in the fall, but their league schedule actually begins in the spring. And then in 2 years, the indoor sports of men and women's basketball and then volleyball will come over to the NWAC. And that was part of the conditions of joining the conference, that all of our teams would transition within a 2-year period. And we delayed the indoor sports because we had commitments nationally for national tournament bids that were aligned to the size of our prior conference. And then also for scheduling purposes, it was a lot easier to transition after 2 years for the indoor sports.
Graydon, this has an impact on students, though, in how you approach from the student side. And tell us about that process and kind of how that went from your perspective.
You know, this was real important to the student services and real important to the institution for the reasons that Al was talking about. A lot of the learning that takes place on campus, I know, certainly happens in the classroom, but there's a lot of development, as I think we all know, that occurs outside of that classroom. I think if you'd go back to people like John who participated in college athletics, some of the most important lessons that they ever learned, some of the greatest growth that they ever had, and things that stay with them today and influence their business, their family decisions, or what they learned on the mat or on the athletic field or on the court that way. And so for us to be able to offer that kind of education, not just the discipline in the classroom, but that education from extracurricular activities, including athletics, was critical. So when Al says, you know, we not only retain 9 sports, but there's an opportunity maybe down the road with that financial responsibility of adding opportunity for our students. We think that was critical, and it was a great decision, not only for financial reasons, but on behalf of the students.
You know, you look at that, and I think across the country, you can say, regardless of classification, whether it's National Junior College athletics or what we see in Division II or even in Division I, you see sports grow and contract even in the larger conferences. And, you know, the old Big 8 is no more. You know, the old Western Athletic Conference, you know, that does not exist any longer. And so change is inevitable, and I think it really speaks to the ability of an institution to adapt to that, and it's not always easy for some of us as fans to adapt to it. You know, not having some of those old rivalries. You know, the Big East basketball, Big Monday on ESPN, and watching some of those basketball doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But there is competition, and as you mentioned, Graydon, I think the lessons that are learned are always important for our athletes, and to provide those opportunities. And I think it'll be a new chapter for us here at the college, and a new chapter for our community, and an opportunity in a couple of years to dominate the WAC across the board, or the NWAC, and this fall and spring, we'll just go ahead and get it done right now. So we'll just have you take care of that.
Well, I like that.
Well, you know, Mark, you mentioned about national trends and what's happening there. Al and I had a conversation previously about what has happened in the NCJAA in terms of budget reductions and the impact on athletics across the nation. And Al, you want to talk a little bit about what other institutions have done in terms of eliminating or reducing athletics because of those considerations?
Well, that is a trend that goes on across the country. It's not just limited to us out here in this area. We're actually fortunate to have an option to be able to go to a different conference. But as I go to different meetings around the country, a lot of schools have to cut programs. And because they don't have an option like this, and it's just a matter of the cost to get to these events are expensive. For example, in our league, our closest rival is 500 miles away currently. Under the new format of the NWAC, we'd be having a league that will go anywhere from 30 miles to our nearest rival is Spokane Community College, and our farthest rival in the east will be 400 miles, which will be Ontario, Oregon. So it's quite a bit of travel savings. You can get a chance to be more in attendance at your class as far as not having to have as many overnight trips. But it is, again, nice to have an option to have a league with 38-member college conference right here in your backyard. And as you see, we are in the Northwest, and the schools that we're competing against now will be in Washington and Oregon and the province of British Columbia for Douglas College. But it's nice to have that option right here in your backyard. And your fans can attend the ball games. We have some of the region tournaments that are going to be within a 2 to 3 hour drive, a little bit different than the conference that we're in. And don't get me wrong, the national competition has been tremendous for us. It's provided opportunity for getting athletes of international athletes and across the country, but we'll still be able to get athletes from out here in the Northwest and still be able to bring them in with different programs, even for the international programs. And we can still get some All-American recognition through the different coaches associations. So a lot of things that we thought we were going to be giving up, we still can get them in different avenues to get the proper exposure for our student athletes and be able to have them be still recruited by four-year schools across the country.
Graydon, you had a meeting today with the superintendents from North Idaho, and I know this topic came up, and would you be willing to share the response you received from them?
And absolutely, Al and I both had an opportunity to meet with. It was the principals and it was the athletic directors, so folks who were real close to that scene. And Al was talking about our change into the NWAC and explained that. And it was fascinating to just watch the body language, because you're worried these are people who are real competitive and they're going to maybe be thinking that was a bad decision. But as you looked out across the audience, you could tell they were real supportive. You were getting a lot of nodding. And as soon as Al had completed, he had a number of people representing large schools in our area that we serve here, saying that was a great decision. We applaud you. That was the right thing to do. Al talked about opportunities for students from the region that we serve to participate in the athletic programs here, and I think they appreciate that. They appreciate our stewardship, so it was extremely well received.
It was.
Folks here in North Idaho, quickly, even on the K-12 level, they understand the travel. You know, they understand having to go to Southern Idaho all the time. So, you know, you've got some sympathetic ears there. It's expensive and it takes time. It takes students out of the classroom.
Yeah. Well, listen, gentlemen. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, I wanted to interject a little bit about the role that the Booster Club played. I know this decision to come down and switch to the NWAC came relatively quickly to a lot of ears in the Booster Club realm, and our decision to support this choice was in our board decision. We had an opportunity in how it was given. I wanted to put this out there in the airways that we had an opportunity to transition to another conference, or to eliminate, 3-4 positions here at the college. I mean, that's how I see it. I see the coaches. I know, Don and Dan and Ken and all these members of our community that are you talk about adjunct positions here and full-time faculty. These are our coaches. These are our family. This is who we support daily, and so that wasn't a light decision to say that we're supporting the North Idaho College going to the NWAC. It was I try to use the comparison with shooting yourself in the foot or shooting yourself in the face. I mean, staying in the conference is like shooting yourself in the face, because you're going to have to eliminate 3 or 4 positions. We're going to go to the NWAC. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. We're not going to have national travel. However, we're still going to have all of our sports here. Yeah. So. And then it comes out in the paper, hey, John wants to shoot himself in the foot. For the Booster Club to be aired out kind of like that was not quite fitting, but I wanted to put that out there, those were the decisions that were made, and we support going to the NWAC, and that's why. I just wanted to put that
John,
in the notes.
Thank you very much for that perspective. We appreciate that. And we are unfortunately out of time today. And I want to thank all of you for joining us to hear about what's happening at North Idaho College on NIC today. Graydon, thank you for being here. John, thank you very much for being here. Al, we appreciate you being here. And as usual, Mark, I appreciate you being here as well. So until next time, thanks very much. Stay safe and support North Idaho College like you have. Thank you very much.